Thank you for listening to this podcast from TRE, Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain and around the world. For more information, please visit tre.radio.
Ger Sweeney presents Live on Eire in association with emeraldconnection.net.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney. You might know, but no one else does, that I pressed the wrong button. Anyway, good evening and welcome. Nice to have your company on this Wednesday evening. Good to be back with you again after I not being here last week. I want to say a big thank you as well to Eamon and to Mari and to Giles and to Nicola, because those four, without them, I wouldn't be here this evening. Simple as that. I want to say a big thank you. Anyway, so there you have it. Okay, right, what have we got for you? Oh, sorry, another thank you. I want to say thank you to Bob James. He's been with you for the last hour. Thanks a million, Bob, looking after us. I look forward to your company next week. Look forward to your company tomorrow again between 6 and 7. And of course, you will have his dulcet tones throughout the day with the Spanish news starting at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning when Dave arises and brings you Daybreak with Dave. So there we have it. What do we have for you this evening on the programme? I have a smashing programme lined up for you. And if you were listening 2 weeks ago, last time I was here, you will know half of what's coming up. The first half you won't know, and that is because I didn't tell you that I was going to be talking to Alistair Bell. Now, Alistair is the Visitor Services Operations Manager at Visit Belfast. I'm going to be talking to Alistair about the Belfast Christmas Market. That doesn't just attract people from Belfast, but from the entire island of Ireland and across Europe as well. Looking forward to that conversation with Alistair about Belfast Christmas Market. Now, we're kind of staying northern as well because Paul Brady was born and bred over the border. Yes, indeed he was. And Paul will be joining me for the second hour of the programme. His recently very favourably acclaimed book, which was titled Crazy Dreams, is a phenomenal read. And a very honest read as well. And I'm looking forward to my conversation with Paul, not just about the book, but about the things that are contained within it, or some of them, as many of them as we can get through in the second hour of the programme. So there we go. I've been heralding that particular interview for a long time. I'm going to also tell you this evening on the programme about some of the things that are coming up over the next couple of weeks, because we're only in 3 weeks' time, it'll be over, done, dusted, forgotten about Christmas 2022. So I'm going to be telling you about things that are coming up between now and the end of the year, but I better move on. I've got good news to start with, I am glad to say. Shane MacGowan's wife, you know Shane, the lead singer with the Pogues, well, his wife, Victoria Mary Clark, has thanked fans and said that the former Pogues singer, while still at hospital being treated for an infection, but he's doing well. Clark appealed for people to send prayers and healing vibes for 64-year-old Shane after he was admitted to hospital on Monday, adding that he is really hoping to get out ASAP. I bet he is. She provided an update on his condition on Tuesday evening, tweeting, "I just wanted to thank everyone who has been sending good wishes for Shane. He is being treated for an infection and the doctors are confident that he will be okay. I am just incredibly grateful to them and to all of you." Shane turned 65 on Christmas Day, by the way. He does. Yeah, I kind of knew that, all right. So I was hoping he'd be out before his birthday. So hopefully he will be. And we continue to send good, positive, get well soon vibes to Shane MacGowan and in that direction. Also, more good news. Some 3,000 people were conferred with Irish citizenship at 3 separate ceremonies in the INEC in Killarney on Monday, and a further 500 people received their certificates of naturalisation yesterday. The applicants were drawn from 130 countries, with the highest number of applicants from the UK, 375 of them, India 326, Pakistan 282, Poland 170, and Syrian Arab Republic 159. Citizenship ceremonies were first introduced in 2011, and following this week's ceremonies, there have now been 158 ceremonies in total, with 155,000 people from over 180 countries receiving their certificate of naturalisation. They were jubilant. I heard some of them on the radio. I didn't see it on television. No, I heard it on the radio. So congratulations and welcome to the new Irish citizens. How many of them was it? Over 3,000. Well done. Nice one. Great stuff. And I have more good news. Do you want it? Here it is. It's the brand new single from The Rains. We're big fans of The Rains on this programme, aren't we? Yes, we are. Here they are, the three ladies, and Leaves Shake.
Leaves shake, boughs bend, carry on till the very end. Lean heavy on the branches till they break and they fall. These hands hold so much. This mind, everyone's scratch. But when I need a shoulder, no one hears me call. Standing on the edge, like I'm carrying the world. It's a long way down. It's a long way down. Stronger with the wind. Can you hear it in the voice that I found? Roots down deep in the earth. Sunflowers grow through the stones and the dirt. I'll hold my head higher to the heat of the sun. Sleep won't sing me a lullaby. Thoughts now dreams as the hours crawl by. I used to move slower. Now I'm learning to run. Standing on the edge, like I'm carrying the world. It's a long way down. It's a long way down. Stronger with the wind. Can you hear it in the voice that I found? Voice that I found. The voice that I found.
Isn't it lovely? Thought you'd like it. It comes from The Rains, our friends, The Rains. And that's a song that is simply titled Leaves Shake. Indeed they do. I'm home. I'm back in Ireland. Yeah. The comings and the goings. That's why I wasn't with you last week. I was travelling, and we drove back on this occasion, as we often do, and it was lovely. Made a kind of a couple of days away, and this time last week I was in Valladolid and was unable to present the programme remotely last week. But glad to say, back in the Irish studio, back home, and it is bitterly cold, absolutely bitterly cold, and it's expected to get down as far as -5 or -6 in parts of the country overnight. And yes, I've had the hat and the gloves and the whole lot on since I came home. Nice to be back home as well. That is why I cannot take any phone calls. If you're ringing the studio, I apologise, I can't do that. If you would like to get in contact with the programme between now and 9 o'clock, I would love to hear from you. You can send a WhatsApp message by text at +34 645 99 67 95, or you can send an email to studio@tre.radio. My own email address, Ger, GER@TRE.radio, will work as well. So whichever one suits you will be fine with me. Going to tell you something about the Irish Aviation Authority. They have launched a campaign today, and I'll tell you more about that. But first, I have to take a very quick break.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Welcome back to the programme. Nice to have your company on this Wednesday evening. I hope I find you well and I hope I find you happy. If you're not happy, sure, stay tuned and we'll try and lift your spirits some way along the line. With many people likely to receive drones as Christmas presents, the Irish Aviation Authority is warning operators that they must obey the laws that regulate the use of the devices. Customers who buy drones or consumers who buy drones that are over 250 grams or have a camera irrespective of the weight are legally required to register online as a drone operator, place the operator's registration ID number on the drone and complete an online training course. Now, the IAA, the Irish Aviation Authority, has launched its Drone Safely This Christmas campaign and is warning that drones can have very serious consequences if they collide with a person or something in their airspace. The authority says that drone use has increased significantly in recent years and that operators must know the rules before they fly. Piloting a drone is fun, but it comes with responsibilities, and no matter what their use or purpose, drones can raise challenges from both safety and privacy perspective. That's according to the IAA Director of People and Operations, Jim Gavin. Operating a drone in public requires training as they can have serious consequences if they are flown inappropriately or collide with a person, an animal or an aircraft, Mr. Gavin said. The IAA became one of the first aviation regulators in the world to introduce regulations and mandatory drone registration in December of 2015, but says that it is concerned that there are many drone owners who are not registered and who may be flying unsafely, putting people and other aircraft at risk. Now, there is an exemption from registration when it comes to toy drones. These are devices that it states clearly on the box or in documentation that it complies with the regulation on toy safety, and it is intended for use in play by children under 14 years of age. I was taken by that when I saw it because that campaign was launched today, and I contacted the Irish Aviation Authority, and I had a full program lined up for this evening, so I couldn't take anybody, but they have told me that Enda Walsh, who is the drones manager at the Irish Aviation Authority, will talk to me on next week's program, so I'm looking forward to that. So if you're planning on buying a drone for yourself, for somebody else, for Christmas, or maybe Santa Claus is bringing a drone to somebody in your house, well then that might be a conversation that you would like to hear next week on the programme. Alrighty, that's all coming up next week, of course. What else? Patricia will be here next week as well. We'll have a story from her. She's continuing. In fact, next week we'll conclude the series on words and phrases and things that would appear in everyday language that have their origins in the Irish language. So yeah, looking forward to that. Another one next week from Patricia. All right. So now we're giving you kind of a heads up on what's coming up over the next wee while. What time is it now? We have, okay, right. I think what I'll do so is I'll take another track and come back to me after that. And then what we'll do is we'll take a break and I will be talking then to Alistair Bell from we're talking about the Belfast market, the Christmas market in Belfast.
Made it to a new city, giving my number to perfect strangers, and they're calling me back, calling me back. I'm making it up to everyone. I'll be the oldest, latest version of myself all at once. Just hold me back, hold me back. Tell me if I repeat myself. Tell me if I repeat myself, so I can draw a line with diamond razor blade. Tell me if I repeat myself. Tell me without you. The silence was more than I could endure. 'Cause you didn't say a word, no, you didn't say a word. It got quieter and quieter. Tell me if I repeat myself. Tell me if I repeat myself. So I can draw a line with diamond razor blade. Tell me if I repeat myself. Tell me if I repeat myself. 'Cause I wouldn't mind hearing it over again. I made it to a new city. I made it to a new city. I made it to a new city. I made it to a new city.
Nice, isn't it? It's called New City. It comes from a girl called Fiorna. It's spelled F-E-R-N-A. Her real name is Hannah McPhillimy. It's M-C-P-H-I-L-L-I-M-Y. McPhillimy. And she's already had a huge amount of success, particularly with the Northern Ireland Music Prize for a single of the year 2022 with her single Wastin', W-A-S-T-I-N. That was Fiorna, all right, spelled F-E-R-N-A, and new music from her called New City. When I say new music, it's about 2 weeks old now at this stage, but thought I'd give it a spin for you this evening. Do you remember I told you a few months ago, I've told you a few times actually, about a lovely project which has been given the name Cuddles from Nurcha. And Irish woman, Irish expat, I suppose you could call her, Mary Custers McCarthy, whom you've met on the programme twice before, decided she was going to gather together soft toys and send them to the children in Ukraine. Well, they're there. The toys have arrived. But before I left Spain, I went to Nurcha and I spoke with Mary Custers McCarthy about the initiative. And I also spoke to the two gentlemen who put 2,000, tell you what, they didn't put two, they almost put 2,000 of these cuddles, these soft toys on 2 motorcycles, and each of them headed off. That's Angus Charlton and Hedley Smith. I'm going to be broadcasting the conversation that I had with Angus and Hedley and Mari about that wonderful trip on the 28th. That's this day, 3 weeks. All right. So the program between Christmas and New Year, you will hear that particular conversation with the 4 of us. Beautiful. Looking forward to that. All right. So I just thought it's a nice, warm story and something that would fit beautifully between Christmas and New Year. So listen out for that, won't you? I'll remind you again about it. Let's take a quick break. So back in just a moment, I'll be talking to Alistair Bell about the Belfast Christmas Market.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
The song says 'tis the season to be jolly, but it's also the season for Christmas markets, and we're all familiar with them. And I had a look and I thought, hang on, where's my pin? And I stuck it in the map. It landed in Belfast, and we're going to talk to Alistair Bell, who is the Visitor Services Manager at Visit Belfast, because their Christmas market is up and running and is absolutely flying it. Alistair, you're welcome to the programme. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much, Ger. And yourself?
I'm in good form. I can't complain. How has it been for you so far?
It's been great. Our Christmas market, as you mentioned, opened just facing our Visit Belfast Welcome Centre in the grounds of City Hall. It opened on Saturday, and in its first 2 days, there have been 50,000 people through the gates of City Hall. I was over myself this morning for a walk around because I'd been away for a couple of days, and there's a real buzz and a real variety of offerings at the market.
When I stuck that pin into the map, I was very fortunate once I looked at the Belfast Market website, because you start by saying that it's not just people from Northern Ireland, but from the island as a whole, but also from across Europe that come to visit you at Christmas time. How do you manage that? I
would say sheer fluke. No, I think the knowledge of what Belfast has to offer. You know, we're well known for our crack, we're well known for our pubs, our bars, our entertainment, our visitor attractions, and this just adds something special. There's a number of things happening around Belfast City over the Christmas period, and the market just adds to it. And as I say, when I was over this morning, you heard accents from Spain, from Germany, you heard our friends across the border, and everyone was around mixing, asking questions, and it was lovely to hear that. And the markets, I think, generally across Europe, people seem to be going round various markets, take a year and come for a city break, have a couple of days,
lovely.
You know, see the market, see the decorations, and enjoy a bit of shopping as well.
I always say that radio is a better medium than television, because if you describe something on the radio and you've got 20 people listening, then there are 20 different images of what the person is talking about and looking at. So describe Belfast Christmas Market to me.
Well, you're very lucky. As my mother says, I have a face for radio. So in describing the market, you're walking around. There's individual little wooden chalets, and there are various different providers there. You have food providers, and you've the lovely smells coming out. Certainly it's not going to do my waistline any good for the next couple of weeks as I go over there each lunchtime sampling the different foods from the different countries.
Right.
So you're getting the smell, you're getting the sense of colour from one particular soap stand or some of the clothing stands. You've all these bright colours around. You've got the intricate wood carvings that you see going around, the coloured pottery. There's even, I noticed this time, a gentleman doing caricatures. So that might be my Christmas card this year, to go over and get a caricature done for the front of the Christmas card. We have the gentleman in red himself for the kids, which is brilliant because it's going to the Lord Mayor's charity this year, Pretty in Pink. So any funds raised from that go towards charity. We have the German sausages for sale there. We have the Dutch crepes and pancakes there. The mulled wine, of course, I wouldn't take part in that during working hours, of course, or the German beers. That would be after I finish in the centres, nicely locked up at 5:30, and it's open to 10 o'clock at weekends and 8 o'clock during the week. So there's still a few hours, and there's a couple of activities to do. There's a lovely old-fashioned carousel with the hobby horses, and the little organ playing in the background, and scenes of all across Northern Ireland are painted around it. Or the old Helter Skelter, which reminds me of Barry's Amusements in Portrush, where you went down the Helter Skelter and the map. And there's a dome that you can go into and have your photograph taken, and the snow's all blowing up around you, another Christmas card scene. And then there's we like a crack here in Northern Ireland. There's T-shirts with the Northern Ireland sayings, and it's really lovely to watch visitors try and understand what the words mean on those T-shirts.
Yeah. Give us an example. Give us an example.
Well, what's a crack? Being one of them,
okay.
Or for anyone who would have watched Dairy Girls Sucking on Diesel, so I'm sure many of your listeners will know those kind of colloquials that we have around Northern Ireland. So it's really nice to see that. And this year, I think, as you've mentioned, there's been a good mix of not only international visitors, but international traders, along with 30% of the traders are Northern Ireland-based traders. So St. George's Market every weekend has loads of crafters there where you can pick up something really different. And this year they've transferred some of that to the market facing us. So you've got a lot of local providers there who've got that opportunity to the route to market. And there's certainly, as I was walking around today, I kind of thought there's gifts for everyone. You know, you can look at the whole family and there's gifts in many different styles. So it's that whole feel, as you said, it'll conjure up a different image of the smell, of the look. It's one of those things that I think you need to come and enjoy it as opposed to me try and describe it. Maybe not too much of the beer, but certainly come along and enjoy that sense yourself, as each person will get something very different from it.
And I presume there's piped music or, you know, Christmas music as you travel around, or is it up to each individual trader there to provide a little bit of that?
There's a little bit of pipe music. You certainly hear a little bit more lively music coming from the areas that sell alcoholic beverages than you maybe do from some of the other stores. But there is that Christmas atmosphere going round, and you do hear the music as you walk around.
I would be very familiar with some of the things that Visit Belfast would do, and there's always something happening in Belfast. This is just one project that you look after. So tell me about the organisation behind this, because it's nice for me and my family to stroll around and partake in some of the, you know, the edibles and the drinkables that are there. But behind it all, there's a machine that's making it all happen. Tell me about that and how long it takes to put together.
For example, the group that organises the Christmas market tell me that there's been 10,000 screws put into actually setting up the market itself, and they've been building off-site since March.
Wow.
And then only actually came on site 10 days before the market opened with a group of 30 people, and they're local craftsmen that come together to build that up. So there's a lot of work goes in from behind that. They also have an educational element where around 500 kids, school kids, will come and go around the market and see and taste some of the foods, hear from the traders, hear about the Christmas traditions from the countries in which the traders come from. And then there's also a buddy scheme, which is for individuals who have accessibility challenges, who can come along between Monday and Wednesday when it's a little bit quieter in the mornings and experience the market. And the market manager comes and tells them a little bit about the market. So
Lovely.
There's a lot of those behind the scene things actually happen. Visit Belfast as an organisation then are there to promote the city of Belfast and promote what there is happening, not just within Northern Ireland, but in the wide aspect across the island of Ireland and beyond. And so we've helped market some of the other Christmas initiatives so that you can come and spend, as I said earlier on, a little bit more time in Belfast. So for those who like pantomime, we have Cinderella in the Grand Opera House happening. We have a beautiful building which used to be an old Tesco supermarket in Royal Avenue, which has the most amazing architecture inside and out.
Wow.
And they have formed what is a winter dam with Santa's post office there. So kids can go along and post their letter to Santa and see how that whole mechanism of Santa's post office works. W5, again over at the Odyssey, is immersed itself in Christmas with storytelling. There's a new thing in the Lagan, I haven't tried it, where it's a hydro bike with Santa.
Okay.
So pedal with Santa on these hydro bikes in the Lagan. And then, of course, we have Titanic Belfast with its magical Father Christmas experience. That's probably someone phoning in to book their tickets now for that experience. And you get to see the elves at work and the old curiosity shop. So there's lots happening over Christmas. And as an organisation, we're there to promote that. We've had a really highly successful cruise season this year with 141 ships coming in to Belfast and bringing in large amount of visitors. Next year we have an equal amount, if not more, booked in, which brings a whole new different hive to the city. The Welcome Centre itself has many different gifts for the public to come and purchase, and visitors love taking home that souvenir. And of course, to get their visitor information, where to see, what to do, what's the tours to go and do, and give general direction. And in terms of our bed nights, I would be saying book early, because the accommodation is booking up very early. So as an organisation, we're there to promote the city and what's good in the city to the visitor, and bring in the likes of the cruise ships, bring in conferences, which are maybe not so much in the line of your listeners, but that brings in a huge amount of business to the hotels and to the conference centre over the year. So there's a huge amount of work goes into that, and a lot of it is planning for years to come, because of the cruise ships being booked in at certain times, the conferences being booked in at certain times. So we never seem to get a quiet period.
Just when you were talking about that, obviously you have to plan ahead quite a lot. But COVID obviously threw a major spanner in your works, just like it did for everybody else. So how fast were you able to get up and running again in terms of making sure that things were ready when everything opened up again?
For us, and I suppose we're now starting to see numbers now getting close to where we were in 2019.
Okay.
You know, tourism as a whole and all across the globe, but certainly within Northern Ireland, our visitor numbers were rising. 2019, you know, they'd risen year and year and year, and it was expected that would increase over the years. So COVID put the kind of stop to that, but we're certainly seeing we were ready for business where we could be. Different legislation only allowed certain things to happen, and even for the likes of the cruise ships, tours were only allowed to come in, or you were only able to get off the ship if you had a pre-booked tour. Hotels weren't maybe reopening. We saw the difference in restaurants maybe not opening as much. That's all now starting to get back to, if we want to call it, normal, with the hotel rooms being available, restaurants being open a more wider number of days, and certainly we see the visitor attractions and numbers starting to certainly build up there. Some markets haven't just come back to what they would have been 2019, but we're certainly seeing the visitor numbers getting to that 2019 period. So, and it looks bright when we're looking to next year, and I'm talking about the cruise ships and advanced hotel bookings and conferences for next year. It's certainly looking very bright and very optimistic for the numbers building up. That's brilliant.
If I remember correctly, you said that about 30% of the stalls that are at the Christmas market are from Belfast itself. There will be many others from Northern Ireland. So this must give a fairly good injection into the local economies across Northern Ireland, but particularly Belfast.
It does. I mean, without trying to get into the full figures, they expect over the run of the market, which is open to the 22nd of December, to have 1 million people through the gates of the grounds of City Hall, and that's expected to bring in around 78,000 as an economic impact in the market. So 78,000, that's a large injection. When we've come through those tough times of COVID, many of the traders are small sole traders.
Good.
This really will give them a boost to market and a route to market that they maybe wouldn't have had before. And that's only an estimated million visitors. You know, when we look at, as I said earlier, 50,000 in the first 2 days.
Yeah.
Wrap up warm. It's not always the warmest, but hey, when you come to Northern Ireland, you've got to expect that. But you can certainly see, certainly as I walked around today, you can certainly see the traders doing trade. You know, it's not
Great.
that people are going in and observing. Certainly the money or the credit cards were certainly exchanging hands as I went around.
Fantastic. You said that you're open until the 22nd of December, 1 million people through the gates. That sounds absolutely brilliant. For anybody listening that says, you know what, I'd like to do that, I'd like to go. There's still time for them to go. How do you get around if people maybe fly into Belfast, or if they take the train to Belfast, or if they drive to Belfast? Is it easy to navigate?
It is. It's very central. I mean, Belfast is a reasonably small city. So if you were, say, coming up by train, you've got the Enterprise coming into Lanyon Place, and it's only a small walk up to the City Hall. Again, any flights coming in either to the International Belfast City Airport, or there's shuttle buses operate between the airports and the city centre. So getting around isn't an issue. If you like a wee bit of walking, all the better, because you can then look at some of the beautiful buildings and architecture around. You can walk around the various shops that we have and indulge yourself there, or see some of the sights. And the likes of the hop-on, hop-off bus tours and Titanic Belfast are still open and still happening. So you have that opportunity to see around. And when you're here, the likes of the hop-on, hop-off bus tours allow you to go round all the parts of the city and see the different sites and get on as you wish. Within the Visit Belfast Welcome Centre as well, we have our partners TransLink, the transport company, have a desk within the Welcome Centre, and the team there are able to assist you depending where you want to go around the city, where you may be staying to use the normal bus services to get you from A to B, and you then have a number of taxi companies around the city. So there's no problem in getting around the city or getting here from the airports or from the railway station.
I was supposed to be in Belfast for my birthday in 2020, but lockdown came just, my birthday is in March, so we had to hold off. And then we said we'll go in 21. And lockdown came in February, I think it was. We couldn't travel. And last birthday, 22nd, 2022, I mean, there was a hotel mix-up and all sorts of stuff. But I will get there. That's for sure.
It's worth waiting for. You'll see that it was well worth waiting for your 30th birthday to come to Belfast.
Well, listen, we can't go back that far in time. Alistair Bell, the Visitor Services Manager at Visit Belfast. I really appreciate you taking so much time to talk to us about the market in Belfast, which is happening until the 22nd of December. It's happening daily. It sounds like a very big affair. I wish you well with the remainder of it, and indeed everything that you're doing with Visit Belfast. And if you ever need some publicity, you have the contact details. You're pushing an open door. So look, good luck with the rest of the market, and I wish you well with it.
Thank you very much, and a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, if it's not too early to say that, to all your listeners.
Thank you. Hopefully see you in 2023.
You're the first one I call when I'm sad. I just don't know what I would do if I ever lost you. 'Cause you're the best friend I ever had. Well, I know you've been hurting, and I know you've been down. But if there's one thing that's certain, you know I'll always be around. 'Cause you're the best friend I ever had. You're my best friend. You're the first one I call when I'm sad. I just don't know what I would do if I ever lost you. 'Cause you're the best friend so deeply, and no one else understands. Oh, you know I trust you completely, and even put my life in your hands, 'cause you're the best friend I ever had. You're my best friend. You're the first one I call when I'm sad. I just don't know what I would do if I ever lost you, 'cause you're the best friend I ever had. So let's go out tonight and stay up dancing till it's morning. But don't you worry now, we'll make it through somehow. You'll get your feet right back on the ground, 'cause you're the best friend I ever had. You're the first one I call when I'm sad. I just don't know what I would do if I ever lost you. 'Cause you're the best friend I ever had. You're my best friend. You're the first one I call when I'm sad. I just don't know what I would do if I ever lost you. 'Cause you're the best friend I ever had. You're my best friend. Yeah, you're the best friend I ever had.
Is he done? Apologies for starting that song as Alistair and myself were finishing the conversation. I meant to press something else, and then I couldn't for the life of me figure out where the music was coming from, but I did eventually. Anyway, thank you to Alistair Bell for joining us from Visit Belfast. He's the Visitor Services Operations Manager there, and he knows his product and he's excited about it, and it's great to hear. And thank you for talking to us, Alistair, about the Belfast market and indeed about Belfast in general. Sounds absolutely smashing. I won't get there for Christmas, but you never know. Maybe next year, if I'm in Spain, I might come home via Belfast or something like that and go and visit the Christmas market. Wouldn't that be nice? Be lovely. And that was the song was Brian Kennedy at Belfast, one of Belfast's finest sons, and a song called Best Friend. So there you have it. Right, so let's do a quick break. Come back to me just after that, please. I have more music and I have more news.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Welcome back to the programme. Nice to have your company on this Wednesday evening. Now, can I just say, somebody sent me a voice message on the WhatsApp number. I can't play it because if I do, everybody will hear it. All right? And we don't want that to happen. So, no, because I'm in Ireland, I'm only accessing and being able to look at the computer screen. I can't actually get into the nitty-gritty of it. All right? So maybe you might send me a message text-wise. Let me know what that was all about if you get a chance. The text number, by the way, for our WhatsApp is +34 645 99 67 95. Now, the government is seeking applications for a director to oversee the exhumation and analysis of infant remains at the site of the former mother and baby home in Tuam in County Galway. The selection of a director of authorised intervention is a key element in the effort to try and identify remains that were placed in underground chambers at the home between 1925 and 1961. Research by local historian Catherine Corliss found that there were no burial records for 796 children who died in the facility during the 36-year period. Subsequent investigations determined that there were infant remains in 18 chambers on the site. Initial surveys have identified a range of bones for babies and children up to the age of around 6 years. The successful candidate will be charged with managing the excavation process and providing regular updates to survivors and the public. The role is provided for as part of the Institutional Burials Act, which was passed last summer. The legislation allows for the forensic excavation, recovery and analysis of human remains which were buried in a manifestly inappropriate manner. Funding for almost €7 million has been set aside to cover the cost of works at the site in Tuam in 2023. The process will take place on a phased basis, starting with the excavation, followed by recovery of remains and then DNA matching. Where possible, infant remains will be returned to family members or buried in line with their wishes. The director will also be responsible for determining the most appropriate manner for reinterring those that cannot be identified. Now, speaking of DNA and not being able to identify certain remains, I see that the families of missing people are being urged to provide DNA samples as part of efforts to name unidentified remains. The appeal was made at the annual ceremony to mark National Missing Persons Day, which was held in Dublin today. There are currently almost 900 long-term missing people on the island of Ireland, 836 in the Republic and 61 in Northern Ireland. National Missing Persons Day is held every year to enable families to commemorate their loved ones and to raise awareness of Ireland's missing persons. The 10th annual event, which took place at Croke Park, was attended by dozens of families and friends of people who remain missing. Data provided by coroners to the Department of Justice earlier this year revealed that there were 27 unidentified remains of people in districts across the country. One of those people has since been identified. Speaking at today's ceremony, Minister for State of the Department of Justice James Browne encouraged families of missing persons who have not yet provided a DNA sample to consider doing so. The DNA sample, he said, will be compared with samples held on Ireland's DNA database to check if a matching sample of DNA is already stored on the database. Minister Browne said that the collection of matching of DNA samples has made a crucial contribution to several missing persons cases in the country in recent years. The National DNA Database was established back in 2015. People can submit data samples or DNA samples for Forensic Science Ireland through An Garda Síochána, which will then be uploaded to the DNA database. Forensic scientists from FSI, Forensic Science Ireland, I presume, were available at today's ceremony to take DNA samples. FSI assisted the Missing Persons Bureau of An Garda Síochána in 71 missing persons investigations so far this year and helping to identify 12 people in 2022. SFI exchanges DNA profiles with other jurisdictions through Interpol, which assisted in the case of 5 of the missing person identifications this year. A new information guide has been produced by the Department of Justice to assist the family and friends, which can be accessed on the department's website. As part of today's ceremony, Gardaí renewed their appeals to anyone with information about missing people to contact a Garda station or call the National Missing Persons helpline at 1890 442 552. All right, that number again is 1890. That's a local number for Ireland only. 1890 442 552. If you are outside the country and you're interested in making contact with them, well, then just Google the National Missing Persons in Ireland, and I'm sure that number will make itself known to you. All right. Now, that's that done and dusted. Why is this running? I don't know. I want this particular song up here to play on this occasion. So let's press it. Let's press it again. There we go. Here's new music from a man called Niall McCabe. It's a song called Valhalla. Not the first one written about the place.
Why the west wind moves blown across the sea? Does it know that I'm waiting for the wind to blow that girl to me? And how high the east wind ride high upon the night? Can't you see that I'm waiting for the wind to blow my love away? Valhalla, Nirvana, heaven help me now.
little girl who waits for me tonight. Valhalla, heaven, heaven help me now.
That's Niall McCabe, new music from him. That's a song that's called Valhalla. As I said, not the first time a song was written about Valhalla, indeed. Speaking of songs and writing songs, one of Ireland's foremost singer-songwriters, Paul Brady, will be joining me in the second hour of the programme. I'm looking forward to that conversation immensely. And chatting to him about his book, Crazy Dreams, but also about things contained within it and, relevant things in his life. And as I said, looking forward to that. Before that, though, we're going to be going to news for the top of the hour, at the top of the hour. But first, Ireland recorded the highest economic growth in the Eurozone in the third quarter of this year. New figures from the European Statistics Agency, Eurostat, showed today. Eurostat said that Ireland's gross domestic product grew by 2.3% in the 3 months from July to September. Meanwhile, the Eurozone's GDP grew by slightly more than initially estimated. Today's Eurostat figures show with household spending and business investment propping up the economy. Eurostat said that GDP growth in the third quarter was 0.3% in the 19-country euro area in the 3 months from July to September from the previous quarter, and 2.3% year on year. Glad to say Spain is in there as well. With Ireland, the GDP is up 1.4%. So well done. Nice one. Alrighty, let's go to news and I'll see you at the other side of that.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
TRE.
Talk Radio Europe.
Now, welcome back. I told you we'd just be 2 minutes, and good to have your company for the second hour of the programme. As I said to you a little earlier on, where I am going to be talking to Paul Brady, one of Ireland's best known and best loved singer-songwriters. And he's done an awful lot. If you've read his book, you will know how fascinating it is. Looking forward to an equally fascinating conversation with him. But first, I've got to do a couple of these. And then myself and Paul Brady, we're going to sit down by the fire and have an old chat.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Paul Brady, you are very welcome to the programme, and thank you for taking time to talk to us. Congratulations on Crazy Dreams. It's a wonderful read.
Oh, thank you very much indeed. I suppose, in honesty, I'm glad I have it off my desk. It's been sitting there looking at me for the last, I suppose, 4 or 5 years. And, I guess lockdown helped me focus on it. And I'm very pleased now that it's out there. And so far, people seem to be liking it,
Yeah, absolutely. Loving it, I think, is the expression from anybody that I know that has read it, and I enjoyed it immensely as well. Was it a difficult write for you? Because you are extremely honest and you're extremely open about your fears and your hesitancies and your frets and all that. Was it difficult?
Well, I mean, it's only when you say things like that I reflect upon the fact, yes, that obviously it seems to be very honest and open to people, but I never went out of my way to make it like that. I guess that's just who I am, I mean, when I want to talk about myself, I don't like to gild the lily. I suppose it's warts and all, really, for me. Because we're all very complicated people, and we have good sides and bad sides, and lots of confidence sometimes, and other times fears. And I mean, I think, yes, that's what's come across from comments that people have made to me. They think one of the strengths of the book is that that it's warts and all, and very open.
Just how annoyed are you that Phil Lynott owes you £16?
Well, I was pissed off at the time, but over the centuries, I've got used to it.
Tell the story as to how he owed you £16 that you never saw.
Well, I was a contemporary of Phil's. We're talking now 1964, 65. I mean, I came to Dublin to go to university in 1964, and within 6 months, I was playing in rhythm and blues bands. First one was a band called the Inmates, and at the time, Phil Lynott was playing in a band called the Black Eagles. Our paths would cross all the time. In fact, many times there were joint concerts in. It was a cinema in Dundrum. I particularly remember. I don't remember the name of the cinema, but there was lots of concerts where there were 3 or 4 bands on the same night. You know what I mean? Yeah. And a couple of times, at least a couple of times, we shared the bill with the Black Eagles. So that was how I first got to know Phil. And at the time, he had tons of charisma, and we got on well because we liked the same kind of music. And I had just bought a Fender Mustang guitar just prior to me being threatened with being sent down from university. So I kind of knew I'd have to give up the rock and roll bands a piece for a while. And it seemed to make sense. I needed the money, so it seemed to make sense to sell the guitar. So Phil Lynott was admiring it one night after a gig, and I said, well, would you like to buy it? And he says, yeah. And so we agreed on a price. I forget what it was, something like 50 quid or something, I don't know. And he handed me a few bob and said he'd give me the rest a couple of weeks later, but he didn't. We never got it.
That's just the way things happen sometimes. You mentioned college, and maybe if we start maybe at your, the school years, your mum and dad were both teachers. You were born in Strabane, or you grew up in Strabane, and your mum and dad were both teachers. Your dad actually taught in the Republic, and your mum taught in Northern Ireland. And you went to school there where she taught.
Yeah, well, you see, they were trained in the separate jurisdictions, so they both wanted to work after they were married. So the only thing that made sense was to move to a border town. So that was why we ended up in Strabane, because across the river is Lifford in the Republic of Ireland. And yes, because I lived in the north, it seemed to make sense to go to school there with me at my mother's school rather than cross the border to my father's school. And that's what I did. No, it just ended up in Sandmills. My mother was teaching there. Sandmills is a village on the road south from Strabane to Dublin, 3 miles south of Strabane, and that's where she taught.
The first sense that I got in the book of you being or laying yourself bare was when you talked about that and you said, I went to school where my mum taught and we didn't live in that place. So you came away from there every day and you left your school friends behind. And when you were on your holidays from school, you would always go across the border to County Donegal and you'd spend time there with your relatives. And it was the first mention of you saying, I never belonged. I felt I never belonged in any one place or with any one set of friends or anything until you went to college. Was it a lonely time?
Well, I mean, I had friends in the street I lived in, and there were 3 or 4 families like, there was a doctor's family called Browns and another doctor's family called Deanies. So I played with them as kids. And, I suppose in a way I felt lonely insofar as I was obsessed with music at the time. And nobody else that I knew at the time had quite the same interest in music as me or the same kind of need to understand music as me. So I felt kind of, in a way, lonely with music. But music was a great friend at the same time. And it was a pleasant kind of loneliness, is all I can say.
And talking about your love of music and growing up, you mention in the book that you had to ask the question, where was folk music? Where was traditional music on the airwaves, particularly in Ireland, when you were younger? And you said it was like as if RTE or Radio Eire at the time, or Radio Eire as it was trying to mimic what the BBC was doing. And there was no place for it. And it was then when you went to Dublin, and particularly when you met Mick Maloney, that you were introduced to the folk clubs. And that kind of got you wondering, where was this all my life?
Well, that's just my take on it. I grew up in Strabane, of course, and we had a dual culture, in the sense that we listened to the BBC and we listened to Radio Eire, and they were both very different, and particularly BBC in Northern Ireland. A lot of the culture and entertainment factors looked eastwards to Scotland, where a lot of the immigrants to Northern Ireland had originally come from, and the UK was sort of a spiritual home to a large part of the population in Northern Ireland. So that meant that what was on the radio had very little to do with Ireland, and certainly Ireland south of the border. So that was an interesting, thing to grow up with. And then but my parents would also listen to Radio Eire all the time, and there was a big difference between the two cultural environments.
When you got to experience the folk clubs that were in Dublin, and they were pretty much in abundance there at the time, if I'm not mistaken, and as you said, it was Mick Maloney that had introduced you to them. You were absolutely in awe of what was going on and who was playing and who was doing what, weren't you?
Well, yeah, the folk scene in Dublin didn't really start until, the clubs didn't really proliferate until around 1966 and 67. It became nationwide. I had left the rock and roll band, so I was kind of back in Dublin, supposedly for my third year at college. But I had bought an acoustic guitar, and because of I'd met up with Mick Maloney in the house that we were living in, I started going around to folk clubs and as a floor singer, and I sort of would sit in the corner with my guitar, as a lot of people did at the time, and suddenly somebody would say, "Hey, you over there, would you like to get up and sing a song?" So that's how I started. I got up and started singing country blues and stuff, and eventually got noticed, and then I got asked to come and open for the Johnstons, this nationwidely successful group. In a place called the Embankment in Tala, and that's where I met with James Keane, the accordion player, younger brother of Sean Keane of the Chieftains. And James was playing with a Bowran player called Carmel Quinn, I think her name was, and I was doing my usual Hank Williams, Muddy Waters, Mississippi John Hurt set. James asked me one night would I get up and back him and Carmel. So I had never done it before, really played with trad music, and I got up and suddenly I found myself locking right into it, and as if I'd been playing it all my life. It was a really strange feeling. And Carmel and James seemed to really enjoy it too. So, whereas it was Mick Maloney that introduced me to the concept of folk music clubs and stuff like that, it was definitely James Keane who made me fall in love with Irish trad instrumental music.
I suppose a lot of people will remember you from your time with the Johnstons, and would look back with great memories of your time with them there. Talk to me a little bit about how you managed to become part of the Johnstons.
I had been opening for them, doing a 20-minute opening spot for them. So they'd got to see me perform. And at the time, coincidentally, there were sort of troubles within the Johnstons. What happened was they decided to lose their brother, Michael Johnston, because they wanted to expand musically, I suppose, or develop musically. And Michael, I suppose, to some degree was limited in that regard. And Mick Maloney suggested me, and I went and did a few rehearsals with them, and suddenly they asked me to join. And this was about May 1967, I guess.
Right.
And I think I joined that summer and stayed with them until about, good Lord, 1973, 74. 6 years.
You go into that in great detail, and I must say my eyes were twice the size they are as I read it, because throughout your time you always felt as though you were trapped in some respects, and that you weren't playing the music that you really wanted to play, and there was a sense of loyalty as well to the Johnstons and to the brand maybe as well. But when Chris MacLeod came on board, I mean, you were virtually a prisoner in New York, and under his spell that you just couldn't break free from. Tell us about Chris MacLeod.
For a start, his name wasn't Chris MacLeod.
That's right, it wasn't.
It was a false name from day one.
Yeah.
I mean, and he was very charismatic. He came along at a time when our record company was looking for us to branch out and do more songwriting. I hadn't really been writing songs. Up to that, I had been singing trad music and songs. And he came along and he sold himself to us. And I would have to say that I bought it, hook, line and sinker. I kind of made myself a prisoner in a funny way. A part of me at the time, the devil you knew was better than the devil you didn't, and I stuck with it in not really understanding where it was going or where it wasn't going, and I let myself be imprisoned in a funny way because I couldn't see an alternative at the time.
There were some difficult and there were some dark times there, but do you look back at that period, particularly the early part of your involvement with them? Do you look back fondly on it?
Yeah. I mean, I think the White Album, as we call it, the first album we did with me and the band, I enjoyed that, and I also enjoyed the next couple of albums. I mean, the Barleycorn and Give a Damn. Were two albums, totally different albums we put out on the same day. The Barleycorn was totally trad, and Give a Damn was totally, pop and contemporary, orchestrated. So, I mean, I enjoyed all that. It was challenging. It was exciting, and we were very popular at the time. And we were living in England, and we were probably one of the most successful folk acts in the country at the time. And I was making a living, and a lot of red lights flashing, I kind of willfully ignored, because I was in that state of my life. I wanted to drift along and didn't want to make decisions,
We talked about when you left, when there was an alternative for you, and that came in the early to mid 70s, when you got asked by Andy Irvine.
Well, it was actually Liam O'Flynn. Liam O'Flynn sent me a letter asking me would I come back, telling me that Christy Moore was leaving the band, the Planksty, and asked me would I come back and join, and that was like came out of manna from heaven to me. It was like couldn't have been at a lower ebb in my professional career and in my personal life at the time. I didn't have a cent to my name, and this was like, wow, yes. How many times do I have to say yes? It was a really gift to me, and within a month I was back home in Ireland, rehearsing with Planksty and playing the Cambridge Folk Festival that summer. That set me off on a whole new path, and I was very fortunate.
I thought it was very interesting when you talked about and when you wrote about Planxty, and you said, really the band wasn't as big and as iconic as we like to think now. It was kind of like saying that, you went back to something that kind of wasn't we think now of Planxty and we go, wow. Well, back then it was just Planxty and that was it.
The band were popular, yes. But things had gone a bit cool. Their main popularity would have been 1972, I think, or 71, 72. I'm getting my years maybe mixed up here. And, that was their high point. And then it sort of leveled off a bit. And it was when it was leveled off by the time I was asked to join. And, they were popular. Very popular,
of course, yeah.
And but it's now become sort of deified and legendified, and it wasn't like that at the time.
But Christy Moore never left it, or didn't leave the band for a long time, even though you came back to replace him, and you actually played with him in the band.
Yeah, he was there for about 4 or 5 months after I joined. And like I say in the book, I never asked any questions. I was a bit surprised that he was still in the band since I had come to replace him. But I wasn't about to rock the boat, I was so thrilled at being back in Ireland and working and making a living, and I just let it happen. And it was years later that when I spoke to Christy, that he said, the reason he stayed in the band was because he didn't want to let the band down, and he wanted to be there until I settled in, until they all saw that I was able to do it or not. I guess was what he was trying to say. But he stayed on to support the band, and when he saw that I had earned my stripes and was starting to become a bona fide member of the band, then he left.
When I'm in Ireland, my home is in Ennis in County Clare, and not too far from there is Milltown Malbay. And each year, the people of Milltown Malbay celebrate the life and times of Willie Clancy. And it was at Willie Clancy's funeral, if I'm not mistaken, in Milltown Malbay, that you met your wife, Mary.
Yes, that's true. I had come home for Christmas of 1972. I had come down to Dublin to see some friends. And towards the end of January, the following year, I was still in Dublin when Willie Clancy died. So it was a huge event in the traditional music culture of the country. And it was set to be one of the biggest funerals ever. So a load of my music friends were going down to the funeral, and I was offered a lift. And I went down. We went to the funeral, and then we went back to Friel's pub, as it was at the time, for a session that evening. And that was when Mary and her friend Anne Cox arrived in from Dublin. They were both trad music fans, and they had come down to Anne Cox's parents had a house in Spanish Point just outside Milltown Malbay. So that's where they were staying. And so they came into the pub, and I saw Mary and fancied her big time. And so we hooked up after the session. And from then on, for the next few weeks, I was still in Ireland, and we saw a lot of each other. And then I had to go back to America, and didn't really know whether it would last, but it did. And still together.
That's lovely. And it's lovely in the book because you do give that personal insight, and you talk about, when you were on the road and when you were busy, and when your two children, Sarah and Cullum, came along. It hurt you to leave Mary with rearing the children and doing the family stuff that was there. And I suppose it's something that most people who would be on the road a lot like yourself will go through, is it?
Yeah. That's the way it is. You're on the road means you're not at home.
Exactly.
And, if you're a traveling musician playing live music, you have to move all over the place. You have to go where the gigs are, and that was the way it was. And you're right, I wasn't the only one. Andy Irvine was in the very same situation. Andy probably worked far more than me live too later, So yeah, it was difficult.
Playing with the music with Planxty, was that closer to where you wanted to be, or were you still thinking I can do something more enjoyable or something better here with this?
No, I mean, it's funny. I mean, when I joined Planxty, I kind of put that whole other side of my music on the back burner. Any pop music or rock and roll or blues or anything that I had a facility with and a love of. I just felt like it was time to put it in the back burner and really get into the music that Planxty had and that I could bring to it and see where it would go. I didn't see the point any longer in having a schizophrenic thing that to be honest, the Johnsons were. We didn't know whether we were a pop act or a trad act, for a lot of our existence. When I was in Planxty, it was quite clear what this was, and I was very happy because I'd always loved playing with Andy Irvine's music. I'd always loved Andy Irvine's music, and also Liam O'Flynn, and I had played often with Liam O'Flynn, before we had gone out to America. So Planxty, yes, it was very interesting to me musically, and a lot of the stuff that Andy and I put together while I was in that year and a half with Planxty was what turned up on the album I made with him after Planxty split up. I mean, Planxty split up because it kind of drifted to a halt professionally. That we didn't really have creative management. We were sort of drifting along, and it was frustrating from a career point of view at that time. And I just think we all got tired of it. And that's why it came to an end in 1975. But Andy and I always planned to stay together after that. That's when I had one of my most enjoyable times. It was just post Planxty when Andy and I started to tour the UK, Europe, and America. And so from 75 through to 78, Andy and I were the focus of my life, and trad music was,
And what was the magic between yourself and Andy that even when you were members of Planxty, you had decided, look, when this is all over, we'll stick together and we'll do our thing? What was it?
Well, I mean, Andy had a love of Americana, which I had too. I mean, Andy loved old-time American music. He was a fantastic harmonica player in that American style. He loved bands that I loved, like the New Lost City Ramblers and people like Tom Paley and Mike Seeger and a lot of Andy's repertoire. Obviously he loved Woody Guthrie too, and Ramblin' Jack Elliott and all that kind of music I loved. And so that was a big attraction to me in Andy's music. And then also the music he brought back from the Balkans, all that very complex, time-complex music from the Balkans and stuff he'd written himself. It was all very attractive to me, esoteric, and it was a big challenge to me musically. I also loved Andy's singing and still love his singing. And just his music was so rich, and I enjoyed jumping aboard it and then finding any richness that I had myself to offer to it as well.
To operate at the level at which you were operating, and probably still are, your life has to be consumed by music, doesn't it? 24/7. It's all music.
I'd have to question that. I mean, I'm not a person who works 24 hours 7 at music. A lot of the time I'm doing other things, like I'm swimming or I'm scuba diving or I'm fishing or I'm shooting clay pigeons, stuff like that. But all the time there's music in my head. Yeah, put it like that. And forever. I mean, I find it very difficult to go to a restaurant that has music that is, in my opinion, too loud or inappropriate. I was in a restaurant in Belfast the other night, and I mean, I nearly went nuts. For a start, I have this rule that if you can hear the words of a song in a restaurant, the music is too loud. Okay. And the sort of the music in a restaurant, the type of music that should be played in a restaurant should not be music that wants to draw attention to itself.
Okay.
No, those are two. I mean, I'm obsessive about this, to be honest, and it's just because I'm trying to point out how much music is a part of my consciousness all the time.
Okay.
I can't ignore music when I hear it. Other people, my wife included, say, "Oh, geez, I don't even hear that. It doesn't bother me." Like, you know, but it really bothers me if there's music going on that I find unpleasant, or, you know. So, whereas, you know, that is the case, but I'm not playing music all the time. I'm not out in my studio playing the piano all day,
right,
or writing songs all day, or making demos all day. A large part of the time, I'm just sort of a quiescent musical animal, maybe.
Lovely. The book gave me a wonderful insight into recording and how it changed over the years. And you make reference to that when you were in studio doing something, you know, that you may not have been 100% happy with. And if it had been today, you could simply have just layered it with something else. And the process by which, you know, the records were made, you were talking, I remember at one stage you were referring to some album that you were putting together and you ran out of studio time. So you just took what you had done, you brought it to a different studio and you put down the rest of the tracks or the rest of the music or whatever it might be. And I love how you discovered that, you know, singing the song firstly and then building the music around it, as opposed to putting the music down and then building you singing around that as well. Talk to me about, you know, the changes in recording and the methods and the complexities of it.
Well, in the first place, in the late 70s, through the 80s, which is where I did a lot of my recording, it was extremely expensive to record albums. Studios cost lots of money, and if you were with a major record label, you know, they were quite happy to spend your money. Yeah. You know, all right, they'd advance it to you, but you know, they would be paid back before you'd see any of it, you know. Right. So it was an expensive thing making a record in those days, and so therefore you couldn't sit in there like for months on end getting your record right. You were often under heavy pressure to complete it. I mean, the first Johnson's album we probably recorded in 3 days or something, you know, or 2 or 3 days. Yeah. So it was expensive and pressuresome to do that, and then of course, when you're learning how to make a record, you know, it's one thing singing and it's another thing playing and it's another thing producing and mixing it all together. And all that has to be learned, and playing with other musicians has to be learned too. How do you do it, you know? And I mean, it took me a long time to assert myself. If I was playing with a band of electric band, like with a bass and drums and guitars and keyboards and all that, the traditional way of that happening in that time was that the drummer ruled, and the drummer's count-in ruled, and the drummer's rhythm ruled, and everybody in the band had to follow the drummer. And I never felt comfortable with that because, you know, not every drummer felt music in the way that I felt it should be felt. And it took me quite a few bands and many years to assert myself and point out to the drummer, listen, son, you follow me, I don't follow you. I enjoyed playing with many extremely talented drummers like Liam Janocki, for instance, who played with me for years, got that. And that was how he liked to play music, because he saw himself as a percussionist rather than as someone who locked down everybody else on stage. And he got that, and it was a joy to play with him. So it was a long learning curve for me to know how to conduct myself and assert myself within even my own bands. Eventually I did. And so these are all the lessons you learn when you're trying to record your own music, produce your own music, arrange your own music. In bands, often it's a cooperative event, and if you're very lucky, it'll all hang together very well, like the Beatles, for instance. But, if you're a solo artist, but you want a band sound, it's hard to get that if you're on your own,
When did you start writing in earnest then? When did, the songwriter become the big part of you?
Well, I'd say 1979, 80 was when I kind of knew. I had done Welcome Here, Kind Stranger, which was a totally traditional album, a solo album I'd done in 1978. And when I'd done that, and at that time I had stopped touring with Andy too, because Andy was wanted to tour a lot more than I did at the time. I had young children and I was starting to reduce my time on the road for reasons we've talked about earlier. So I made the album a solo album. And when that was done, like 79, 80, I kind of felt like getting back into trying to open that other door inside of myself, which was like pop music, rock music, soul music, blues, rhythm and blues. And at the time, Gerry Rafferty was starting to become really, really popular. And he had an album out called City to City, on which was Baker Street and many other really brilliant songs. And I fell in love with that album, and I thought Gerry Rafferty was the best thing ever. And I just suddenly made my mind up. I want to write songs. I want to try and do what Gerry Rafferty's doing. And so that's when I really started trying to write big time. So all of 1980 I was writing, and I put a band together late 1980, and I toured Ireland with the songs that eventually I recorded the following year, and that album became Hard Station, 1981.
Yeah.
That's when I started really big time, concentrating on songwriting.
Songwriters will always get asked the question, how do you write, or what inspires you, and so on and so forth. And I've spoken to songwriters in the past who can sit down and they can write a song and then they can record it and they can, off they go. And I was, again, my eyes were opened in how you write songs. And a lot of the time, they take time to actually come together. And you have the bones of an idea, maybe, and you're there. And I mean, The Island is an example of that, where you say very early on in the book, you say that, you never fully understood the Catholic versus Protestant thing in Northern Ireland. And it was only in the mid-80s when The Island was written and recorded that you satisfied yourself in relation to that. Tell us the story about being in the booth and the final verse of the song.
Well, I mean, it's very complex. I mean, I still don't know if I fully understand what's going on in Northern Ireland. Yeah. It still seems bizarre to me. I was trying to express whatever I felt about the situation at the time, ambivalent and all as it might have been. And I suddenly felt that a lot of people were the same as me, who had different feelings about things and who weren't sure which way things should go, what was the right thing to do, should it be peaceful, should it not be peaceful, all that kind of stuff. And I was trying to make sense of it in my own head. And, The Island really became a vehicle for me to try and understand how I felt myself. And I had a lot of it written before I got to the studio. I had all the music done and quite a lot of the lyrics. But it really wasn't until I was standing in front of a microphone and somebody looked at the watch and says, Paul, we have to be out of here tomorrow. 3 more songs to record. That I sort of, in a way, forced myself to let the song, to see if the song would write itself. And I kind of found myself getting out of the way while I was listening to the piano being played, and these words just came through me. And it's one of the most magical things about songwriting. Suddenly stuff comes to you that it's almost magical, and you don't know where it came from, and it takes you a while to realize that it's actually come to you. And so that's how the song kind of finished itself. And it was done before I realized it was finished, and it was about a half an hour later that I kind of listened to it again, what we'd recorded, and I kind of went, good Lord, Where did that come from, you know? So I don't know how to write songs, is the honest answer. People ask me they ask me this all the time, and I'm very reluctant to do songwriting workshops or try and tell people how to write a song. I actually don't know how to write a song. I just sit down and open myself up, and sometimes it's just music that comes out, and other times it's some words or it's a storyline. I think really what makes a songwriter more than anything else, presuming you have a talent in the first place, is belief that you can do it and keeping at it even when there's nothing on the page. You know, you have to just keep on keeping on and write 10 bad lines before you get one good line, you know.
And I presume, again, having read the book and the conflicts that go on in your head about is that good or is that better or can I make it better and stuff, does it take a lot out of you to do it, to write?
Well,
yeah,
it does. Yeah, it does. It's exhausting in many ways, but when it comes out and it's finished and you look at it and you like it, and it's like a huge gift to you. So there's two sides to it. It's hard to do, but the gratification of having done it and having something to show or to play or to sing that you're excited about, that's a great benefit from it, you know.
What's it like? What's the buzz like when somebody that you admire in the record business or the music business wants to record one of your tracks? And I'm thinking particularly here of Tina Turner, and that great story in the book about Steel Claws. And I know you had reservations about what the her final product was, but it was still your song. Your name went under it on the album. Now they took the Spanish. I know she took the Spanish mentioned Benidorm out of it. Tell us about Tina Turner and how that came about.
Well, I got a call from my management at the time. One of my managers at the time, Ed Bicknell, was friendly with Roger Davies, an Australian manager who had been managing Olivia Newton-John and then took over Tina Turner. At the time, Tina Turner was at the bottom of a long, slow, agonizing trip from her original kind of fame in the 60s. And Roger was a huge fan of hers and wanted to help her come back and realize the huge talents she had. I mean, her relationship with her husband then, Ike Turner, had been very damaging to her. So anyway, Roger's managing Tina Turner and he's out with Ed Bicknell, one of my managers, at dinner one night, and Tina's going to make her album. And at the time, Mark Knopfler had written a song called Private Dancer, and he was managed by the same people as me. There was already this song, which was earmarked for Tina's album, and Roger said to Ed Bicknell, he said, do you have any other songs, or do you, and Ed had just been listening to my album, the second album I put out, True For You, in 1983. And there was a song on that called Steel Claw, which was about Dublin. And Ed gave that to Roger Davies, and Roger Davies played it to Tina Turner, and she loved it. And so, to cut a long story short there, she recorded that song. And then when she was making a follow-up album, she recorded that song on an album which was her big comeback album, which sold squillions, and it changed my life. But then she was going to do a second album 2 years later, and Mark Knopfler was going to be producing a couple of tracks for her. And at that stage, I was very friendly with Mark, and Mark knew my music, and Mark asked me had I any songs, and I did have a song I'd just written called Paradise Is Here. I was in London at the time, and they said, look, Tina's in London, and if you want her to listen to the song, you got to get around there now. But I had no recording of it. I only had a backing track of it on the cassette. So what I did with it was I stuck the cassette into the house sound system that I was staying in, played it loud over their speakers, and sang along with it into my Walkman recording. And that was what I took around to Tina Turner a couple of hours later. It was a very, very rough recording, and I was kind of very apologetic about it. And she said, well, let me hear it anyway. So she liked it, and she asked to hear it again. And And second time she said, you really liked it, and would you leave it with us? And I said, yes. And turned out a week later, I heard she was going to record it, and Mark Knopfler was going to produce it. So that was a very lucky break too.
You have toured with some of the biggest acts of all time. I mean, Eric Clapton is in there. Dire Straits is in there. Bob Dylan. Phenomenal. How did you settle into that world?
Well, I mean, it may sound strange, and it's a mystery to me too, as anybody else. But as soon as these things started to happen to me, I didn't take it for granted, but I wasn't wildly surprised either. You know, I mean, I kind of always knew that I had a gift. I was given a gift, and that it was a gift that a lot of other people appreciated. If I had any self-doubts, it was that I generally felt, well, people won't get this, you know, because it's not obvious and it's not immediately accessible. You know, my music takes a wee bit of work to get into it. So I would have this latent feeling that, oh, nobody's going to get this. But I never had a problem with, you know, when people did get it. I didn't sort of feel ashamed or anything of my music. I knew it was worth listening to. So it's a strange thing in the human condition, you know, when things that are supposedly out of reach and suddenly they're within reach and you're right in the middle of it. You know, you sort of, well, I suppose take it for granted is the only way to describe it.
It's just, you know, another day at the office when you're going gigging with Eric Clapton or with Dire Straits.
Well, it's suddenly it becomes okay. That's what's happening now,
right?
And so it's happening actually. So just do it and keep on doing it. And I always feel difficult talking about stuff like this because, you know, you run the risk of coming across as being, you know, big-headed, you know, but it's not a case of that. I mean, realizing that you were given a gift is being big-headed, because it's not something I feel I did myself. I feel it was a gift that was given to me, you know.
Okay. We got onto this through Tina Turner, and that was because we were talking about songwriting. I was amazed at the details that you gave about writing songs in a chateau in France. That was great.
Well, yeah. Well, that was a whole new page turning for me. I mean, I had made about, you know, what do we see? About half a dozen, maybe 7 albums where I'd written all the songs myself, 100%, you know, and I hadn't really written with other people before. And I, in fact, had been kind of a little bit reluctant to, because I wasn't sure I could do it. And I wasn't sure I'd enjoy it. And but in the mid-90s, I went through a fallow period of touring for a while, and I kind of stepped back a bit. And this offer to go to France came to me to play in this chateau with a whole load of other, you know, songwriters, very famous songwriters like Carole King, Mark Hudson, Belinda Carlisle, you know, people like that. And I took to it, and I really found I enjoyed it very well. I found that I was able to do it. And in fact, I found it less pressuresome than writing on my own, because I wasn't kind of having to bare my soul in every song I wrote. And I could have fun with other people's feelings and other people's music. So that opened the door for me. And it was a discovery about myself that was very exciting and has lasted to this day. You know, I guess I enjoy writing with other people as much as I enjoy writing on my own now, you know.
What would you do differently?
Well, I don't know if I do anything differently. I don't know if I could, you know what I mean? You know, I never felt forced to do anything. I mean, any of the bad times I went through, you know, I kind of, I got myself into it, you know, and because of who I was, I I found it hard to get out of situations sometimes. But that's who I am, and that's who I was. And I can't imagine myself doing much different to what I've done. I mean, you know, I'm not world famous to the man on the street everywhere, but at the same time, I couldn't bear that. I couldn't bear to be in the papers all the time or paparazzi camping outside my door. I never could. I didn't ever want fame, but I did want acknowledgement and success, and I wanted to make a decent living for my family. And I sort of done that, I guess. And so I'm not sure I would have wanted to do much different.
A difficult question. Have you a favourite song that you wrote?
Not really.
No.
I mean, a song I really like is Wheel of Heartbreak from the Back to the Centre album. But I don't think the recording I did of that was how the song would be shown off best. It's a song I might record again at some stage. I like a song I wrote called Mother and Son, which is a song about me and my mother. You know, I love the song Crazy Dreams. I like The Island. I like Nothing But the Same Old Story. I like Nobody Knows. I don't have favourites, really. I mean, depends on my mood.
Right. Listen, the book is terrific. It's called Crazy Dreams. It's available everywhere because the internet is everywhere. But our listeners can grab a copy of it on our website at TRE.radio if they'd like to do that. Paul, you've been extremely generous with your time, and I want to thank you sincerely for taking time to talk to us about the book and about your life and times. Wish you well, and you're always pushing an open door. If we can do anything for you, please don't hesitate to make contact. It's been really nice talking to you, and good luck for the rest of the day and indeed the rest of the career. And thanks a million, Paul Brady.
Thank you, Ger. Bye-bye.
She dreams of pencil gowns, an orchard in the spring, a house in its own grounds, the joys that love should bring. 3 miles to school each day, a teacher to her trade, rules to be obeyed, his world a melody on every street in town. No game, no boyish chant can match his secret sound. Each time that she draws near, he reaches for her glance. Partners in the family dance, mother and son. Who can foretell the mystery to come? Maybe a two-step on a star, or a long road in shadow, caught in a web by destiny spun. Her dreams grow dimmer now. The years have claimed their toll. A child once more, she waits for peace of mind to fall. He leans to comfort her and catches my surprise. The stranger in his mother's eyes, mother and son, mother and son. Who can ordain the promise to come? Maybe a curtain call bouquet or a garland of sorrow, caught in a web by destiny spun, tied to the beat of the ancestral drum. Nowhere to run from mother and son. Mother and son.
Isn't that just lovely? It comes from Paul Brady. That's a song called Mother and Son, one of the songs that he mentioned that he liked. He doesn't have a favourite, as you heard him say. You heard it from the horse's mouth, but he likes that one. And I thought, rather than playing The Island or Crazy Dreams or something, we play something different, and that's why I chose that one. Well, that's it. Done and dusted for another week. Yeah. Did you enjoy it? You did. Magic. Tell your friends, will you? I'm back again next week. And if you didn't enjoy it, tell them you were listening to, I don't know, watching EastEnders or something. Yeah, that's what you do. Can I say a big thank you to Alistair Bell, the Visitor Services Operations Manager at Visit Belfast, for talking to us on the programme about the Belfast Christmas Market, which is absolutely fantastic. If you missed it, well, you'll catch it on our website, TRE.radio. Go to the Listen Back facility and you will hear it in the first hour of the programme. Thanks as well to Paul Brady for taking time. You know, when a giant like Paul Brady takes almost an hour to chat to you, it says a lot about the person, so it's really nice. So thanks a million, Paul, for that. And as always, can I say a big thank you to our Spanish-Irish cultural advisor on the programme. Thank you to Antonio Sierra for the work he does. And a big thank you as well to PJ Curtis, because PJ was instrumental in putting me in contact with Paul Brady. So thanks, PJ, for that. Right. Look after yourselves now in the coming week. The bit of bad news. Selena is not in next week at work, so I'll be filling in for her between 2 and 4 Monday to Thursday next week. From me, Ger Sweeney.
Ger Sweeney presents Live on Eire in association with emeraldconnection.net.
You've been listening to a TRE production. If you've enjoyed this programme, there'll be another episode waiting for you next week, right here on this platform, where you can also access our extensive back catalogue of shows and interviews. For more information on our live programming, social media channels and apps, and how to contact Talk Radio Europe, please visit TRE.radio.